Hey, Tom here from the Run Testers. In this video, me, Nick and Kieran are going to be doing our multi-test review of the Nike Air Zoom Pegasus 38. Let's take a look and see what we thought. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. I got my pair of Pegasus 38s from the guys over at SportsShoes. They're not paying me to do this review, so we can say whatever we want, but a big thank you to the guys for getting me a pair to test for this review. So before we delve into the full review, let's have a look at those stats. The price of the shoe is £104.95 in the UK. In the US, that's $120. They weighed for me in a size 8, 294 grams, which is 10.4 ounces. I don't know the weight of the women's version, and I couldn't find it online from the Nike website. The drop of the shoe is 10 millimeters. So the Pegasus line has long been Nike's kind of workhorse lineup of trainers that's just designed to do a bit of everything, really. So it's got a bit of cushioning, it's good for a bit of speed, and really it's just a great value shoe that ticks a lot of boxes for all types of runners, really. One of the reasons it's a popular shoe is that it has a very conventional shape and design, and in this most recent version they've actually increased the width of the front of the shoe, so there's actually a bit more space in the toe box for your toes. The midsole uses Nike's React foam, which is the same used in the Infinity line, and is designed for kind of impact minimizing, as well as being a bit harder and propulsive, so you can pick up the pace in it as well. There's an Air Zoom unit that sits at the front, which is technology that Nike have been using for a very long time now, and it just helps with a little bit of a propulsive toe off as you're trying to pick up the pace and keep that forward momentum going. It has these webbed elements at the front of the laces, so they basically mean that it adds an additional width on the laces for a more locked down fit. There's a slight update to the upper material designed to make it a bit more breathable and lightweight, as well as a bit more padding in the tongue section. The rubber outsole is the same as what you'll have seen in the previous version of the shoe, which is quite a healthy amount of rubber that goes all the way across the length of the midsole there, apart from a bit in the central section there which leaves the midsole exposed, but that's quite a big dip, so it's not really accessible as you're running, and there's quite a lot of grip as well, so there's kind of minimal lugs that run across the whole length of the shoe. So yeah, a lot of rubber on the Pegasus 38. It also has these flex screws in there. There's not really many of them, but they're just these breaks in the rubber that runs across that outsole, designed to add a little bit more flex through these sort of more exposed sections here, so that your foot has a more natural movement when you're running.
Fit for me, I ran in a UK 8.5 and I found these pretty much true to size. The only thing I'd really sort of pull out here is that I found them a little bit long in the toe box. There seemed to be quite a lot of extra length just up the top here, without being necessarily too sort of wide in the toe box. I'm not sure that you could solve that. I sort of found the kind of lockdown fit here fine. The overall sort of comfort and wrap around the heels also fine. And I think basically if I half a size down with these, everything else would have been too tight. So I just think that's just the way they're built. You're going to get a little bit of extra in the toe box here.
The fit for me was true to size. I had no issues at all from day one. I think it's got really nice plush step-in comfort. Not so much as some of the most comfortable shoes I've used, but it's perfectly all right. I had no issues with it at all. This updated toe box section in this shoe, which has been widened slightly, is really noticeable. There's a lot of space for the toes in there, and the material that kind of covers it is quite loose and relaxed, so it does feel like there's a lot of space in there, but it does also feel quite locked down, so I definitely didn't feel like it was particularly loose or anything.
So I've only actually logged a couple of kind of solid training runs in the Pegasus 38, and part of the reason for that is that I logged a lot of runs in the Peg 37, which was kind of one of my go-to workhorse trainers last year. And this, I think, is a very, very similar shoe, almost to the point where I didn't really notice any differences on the run. There's a slight increase in weight and, the modified upper, but it wasn't something that really changed my experience of the shoe at all, and the underfoot feel is very much the same. So the kind of runs I've done are kind of my really bog standard kind of base training runs, kind of easy to steady 10k and an easy to steady hour, just rolling from kind of something like 7-minute miling to 6-minute miling, 4:20 per k down to 3:45 per k. I prefer K myself. And yeah, I've done that in the shoe many times in the Pegasus 37 and enjoyed doing it, and I did it in the Peg 38 and I enjoyed doing it. Like I say, it's a really nice standard shoe. It feels nice on the run. There's not loads and loads of bounce from this React midsole, but there's enough kind of responsiveness there, I think. It's comfy, certainly at easy paces, and then there is a little bit more kind of push back when you do up the pace. I feel like the foam comes to life a little more as you do increase the pace, still kind of getting enough from the shoe to hold your slightly steadier paces comfortably. I don't think it's a shoe that I'd take much past kind of steady or even like tempo pace. I don't think I want to do reps in it. It's still, it's reasonably heavy. It's built more for comfort and durability than it is for really speed sessions. I think in the kind of past, maybe quite a few generations back now, the Pegasus was a really versatile all-round shoe. I don't think that's necessarily the case so much anymore. I think there are certainly a lot of shoes that I prefer to take to the track and do that kind of stuff. And you can still kind of do it in the shoe, but I do think it's more geared to base training miles, long runs, easy runs, steady runs, recovery runs, that kind of thing. And it does all those really well. I know the React midsole isn't for everybody. This big slab React. I've always liked React foam, right back to the Epic React, a shoe I really liked, did a marathon in it. I think it can get quite heavy if you have larger foot sizes. Like Kieran obviously found it a bit soft. I don't think it's like really overly soft. I think it provides quite a nice amount of kind of cushion and then spring. It's not spectacular. It doesn't produce magic effects like some of the super foams out there. And there's obviously the Air Zoom pod in the forefoot here to a slightly firmer toe-off feel that is really old technology for Nike now. But it's reliable. It works. I think Nike sometimes gets a lot of stick in the Pegasus for not making it crazy and new enough of all these super shoes out there. But I think it's just a really solid workhorse shoe, and there's not too much wrong with that. One thing that they really do get right with the last two generations of Pegasus is the outsole. A lot of rubber here. It grips really well on lots of stuff, like on wet pavements. I've used it on trails. I used the Peg 37 for loads of trail running, just light trails, especially around the summer. But even in kind of the spring and autumn when things are a little squishier, it grips pretty well and it holds up really well to a lot of running.
So when it came to the run, I did my usual kind of mix here, some roads and tarmac, some river kind of tow paths, sort of compacted gravel kind of trail paths, that kind of thing. I did some shorter, faster stuff, and I also did some longer stuff, 10 miles and beyond. Overall, I kind of find the Peg 38 to be a sort of okay shoe. It's a shoe that I'll happily put on to go and plod around in. There's sort of great kind of plush comfort here. I do find the mesh a little bit too dense, and I found it a little bit hot on my feet, which I don't normally complain about getting hot feet in shoes. But I did find that this was made my feet feel a little bit sweaty, something I was a surprise to me because I'm not normally bothered by any of that. Although in the midsole you've got the same React foam as you'll find in the Nike React Infinity Run 2. For some reason I just didn't enjoy it as much in this shoe. With this shoe, for some reason I found it a little bit too soft. I found that, I don't know, it just sank a little bit too much. It's not something that I kind of like. I much prefer a sort of slightly firmer shoe. That is something that I talk about a lot. And I found at times this was a little bit deadening. When I did one of my 10-mile runs with a Peg 38, I just found it took about half of the miles or half of that run for the shoe to sort of break in. It sort of numbed my feet for a while, and it took a little while for me to sort of get used to that and me to sort of enjoy that sort of soft run underfoot. I did find that when I picked up the pace, which I did in the second half of that run, that these fared a little bit better. So that was something I was kind of surprised at. I felt they ran happier at faster paces. Overall, I think these are a shoe that I would sort of happily put on to go and plod around with no particular intent. I wouldn't necessarily pick them if I was going to try and do something with a particular purpose, like clipping up the pace, running faster paces. I don't think I'd race in them. I think if I was going out for a chatty run with my mates that was sort of slightly longer, maybe I'd pop them on and run with them. I don't think they would be my sort of first choice shoe overall, even for that. But I think if that's, if you like the old pegs, then maybe that's something you would use them for. But I have to say, I think that I would might personally be sort of reaching for the Nike React Infinity Run 2. I just think the all-round package with the Infinity Run is more to my preference. I think the uppers are nicer. I just think they just feel more comfortable on the feet. and yeah, I just prefer the overall run to those, and I think they would pick them above these.
So this is the first time that I've used any of the standard sort of Pegasus lines. I ran in the Peg Turbo in both the 1 and the 2 versions, but I've never actually ran in any of the standard Pegasus shoes. And it's pretty much what I expected to get from the shoe, especially after hearing Nick talk about the previous version so much. It's got a bit of everything, really. It's a comfortable plush shoe that's pretty well designed for most things that I've ran in so far. I've done about 60 miles in the Peg 38 now, and I've done it across lots of different terrains. So I've been using it across road and sort of gravel to trails, and I've actually been running across quite a lot of fields in it recently because it's fairly dry in the UK now, so you can actually do that. So yeah, I've tried it out on quite a lot of different terrains, and in all cases, I've been pretty impressed. I would say that the foam that sits within it, that React foam, it does feel quite spongy. I know Kieran thinks it feels a little bit too soft. I think for me, it's pretty good for what I expected. I would say it feels a bit denser than what I was expecting. So it feels quite a heavy shoe, not just in terms of weight, but because of that foam, it feels like you're kind of bedding down into the ground quite heavily. And I don't feel like I get a lot of responsiveness from this. It does feel like quite a hefty shoe to be wearing. That said, I don't think it's a bad shoe by any stretch of the imagination for anything that I've really tested on. I think, as we've said, it's a workhorse shoe, and it just does a bit of everything. So I've ran between 5Ks, faster runs, all the way up to half marathon trail runs, and in each one, I think it's done a very good job. I certainly haven't had any issues with it in any of those at all. I would say that when you're going up to faster paces, it's not really delivering an amazing experience. It's not a fast shoe, but also when you're doing kind of slow, easy runs, there are better shoes for it as well. It's not really the best at any of these, but really I don't think it's trying to do that. I think it's just trying to be a really good value shoe that just ticks a lot of boxes. Especially if you're a general runner who just wants a good value pair of shoes that will just cover them for all sorts of different types of training. The outsole I was really impressed with, actually. The grip on it was quite fantastic for what I expected from the shoe, and I found that in wet conditions and across sort of wet pavements and gravel, it does a really good job at gripping to the terrain. So yeah, really impressed with that outsole so far, and I think in terms of the durability of it, there's barely any signs of wear or tear at all on that rubber, and that's over 60 miles, so probably going to be a pretty versatile shoe like its predecessors.
So my verdict on the Peg 38 is quite simple. I think this is a pretty solid kind of plodder shoe. It's happy at kind of easy miles. I think if you're looking for a shoe that's going to offer comfort, sort of plush cushioning, thick padded tongues, padding, and kind of that overall sort of luxury, sort of soft comfort feel over longer miles, then I think you could reach for the Peg 38 and you won't be disappointed. For me, there's too much mesh going on the upper. I found it a little bit too hot and a little bit claustrophobic. I wouldn't necessarily pick it over and above a bunch of different shoes. It wasn't my favourite shoe to run in. I think there are sort of better shoes for that out there for me, but overall it's not a shoe I incredibly disliked. It's just not hit kind of the notes for me and become one of my preferred shoes. I'd definitely pick a Nike React Infinity Run over and above this, or I might even grab a Hoka Rincon that just feels a little bit lighter, a little bit more minimal for the kind of runs that I would tend to use this for.
So when it comes to this kind of shoe, like an all-round workhorse trainer, I really value things like kind of durability, kind of good versatile grip, and value, and that is what the Pegasus provides. It's just over £100 for what is a very, very solid shoe that will handle a lot of mileage, even without necessarily blowing your socks off every single run. I will definitely say if you can nab a deal on the previous version of the Pegasus, the 37, I would do that. Nothing here has really changed that much for me. I enjoyed both shoes pretty equally, and you're going to get even better value if you can find the old one for kind of 50, 60, 70 pounds maybe. However, Peg 38 has one big problem that the Peg 37 didn't have, which is the Puma Velocity Nitro, which is basically now one of my favourite shoes all round. Does a very similar job to the Pegasus 38 in being a versatile workhorse daily trainer, but I think it's more versatile. I think it's slightly poppier, it's a bit lighter, it's just as comfortable, maybe even comfier, while still having enough spring, I think, for long speed sessions in particular. It's under £100, it's even cheaper. I think the Velocity Nitro is just hands down a better all-round shoe than the Pegasus 38, whilst doing a lot of the same stuff. It even has a fantastically grippy outsole with that Puma grip outsole that works in similar conditions to the Peg 38. So yeah, basically, as much as I like the Peg 38 and the Peg 37, I would definitely buy the Puma Velocity Nitro if it was my money. I think it's just a really fantastic shoe. And then one option I think that always gets overlooked, and I think it's quite an underrated shoe, is the Brooks Launch 8. Brooks Launch line in general is just a nice shoe. Brooks is kind of billing it more as a speed shoe these days, but I still think it's very similar to the Pegasus 38 in terms of being a good workhorse trainer, solid, unremarkable shoe, gets the job done. It's lighter, firmer, a little bit poppier than the Pegasus 38. So I think if you're someone who doesn't like the changes Nike made to bring in this React midsole on the Pegasus 38, but want maybe a similar feel to kind of a couple of generations back of Pegasus, I actually think the Brooks Launch is definitely worth checking out. It's £100. And it does provide a lot of that similar stuff, or maybe being slightly more versatile than US Pegasus. I'm not sure if it has such an amazing outsole, but I'm enjoying running in it, and I think it's an option that a lot of people overlook unfairly. If we're talking about more expensive shoes, let's talk about the rest of Nike's range. There's the Invincible, the Infinity Run 2. So they're a lot more expensive. They're both kind of more glamorous shoes than the Pegasus. The Infinity is very smooth, the Invincible is very soft. I don't think either of them are enough markedly better than the Pegasus for doing this kind of job of workhorse daily trainer. I would save my money and definitely get the Pegasus out of those three. If you're just shopping within Nike's range, I think it's doing a good enough job compared to those shoes. I couldn't really say which I preferred out of the three, and this one's a lot cheaper, so that makes it an easy choice for me. So yeah, all round, the Pegasus 38 is a nice shoe. It's a minor update. It's a solid update. There's nothing bad about the new stuff on the shoe, but I don't think it's particularly remarkable what Nike's done here. Certainly get the Peg 37 if you can. This is a nice workhorse shoe. I'm getting the Puma Velocity Nitro if it's my money. But yeah, it's a nice option to have out there as another good workhorse trainer.
It's just a great value all-round shoe, really, which is from what I've heard of the previous ones, even though I haven't tried them. In the UK, it's £105, which is pretty good value considering what you're getting from that shoe. I think the target market for it is people looking for just a shoe that's going to cover you for all different sorts of things. If you're a new runner and you're looking for a trainer that is fairly well priced but also has some technology in that's quite advanced, like that React foam that sits in it, I think it's a really nice option for those people. It can be used for slower runs. There's a lot of that React foam is good for slow runs. For faster runs, it's also quite good as well. It gives you the ability to kind of pick up the pace a bit. It's not the fastest shoe in the world. There's way faster shoes, especially if you're looking at some of Nike's alternatives as well. But for the price, you're not going to get those. So this kind of covers a lot of different things to an extent. It doesn't excel in any way, but it does deliver on a lot of different fronts. And ultimately, it's a comfortable shoe. So if you're new to running or you just want a workhorse trainer that's going to support you in, you've got races and things like that, and you're wearing your fast training shoes, but you just want another shoe to just bang about in, do daily training miles in, and just go out and you're not really sure what you're going to be doing. So if you've got a training run and you're leaving the house and you don't know how fast you're going to be going, you might be going for a slow run and you just want something that's going to keep you comfortable there. It does the job. Or if you head out and you find within 2 miles that you really want to go a bit faster, you can do it in this. So I think it's a very nice shoe when it comes to kind of daily training, especially for that price. I know Nick's gone into quite a lot of depth with his alternatives, so I'll very briefly cover what I would say what are the alternatives for this shoe. So the Puma Velocity Nitro, I completely agree with what Nick says with that one. I think that's a very good alternative for this shoe and is a little bit of a punchier shoe when it comes to picking up the pace and going a bit faster. Other options I would probably say are the Hoka Rincon 2, which it's a bit lighter than this. It's a little bit less dense. The foam in it's a bit lighter. So I really do like the Rincon shoes, but I would say that I think this is a lot more durable though. So if you want a long-lasting shoe, this is probably going to be a bit better for that. I'd also say that something like the New Balance Fresh Foam 1080 V10, which is a lot more expensive, that comes in at about £135, but you can get previous versions cheaper quite often. So if you want this sort of shoe, that the Fresh Foam 1080 V10 is a great one, or even maybe even the V9, great alternatives to it if you can get them cheaper. And do a very similar job. I'd actually probably say they're almost on a par in terms of what you get out of them, but I think there's just a little bit more bounce in the Fresh Foam than you're getting in the Pegasus 38. So that's it from us. Thanks a lot for watching another review from the Run Testers. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get notified of all the new videos that we've got coming up. And while you're here, why don't you check out some of the other videos that we've got on the channel, from the latest road and trail shoes to headphones and all the latest running tech like watches and heart rate monitors that you might want to know about to make running just a little bit more enjoyable. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you soon.